allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Item B, Levi, note that all board members are present. Item C, approval of the agenda.
We approve the agenda.
Have a motion, we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a motion, a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed 7-0. Okay, comments from the president. I just need to read this to start out, and then we'll get started. Upon welcoming all for the board meeting, the board president reminds all visitors of the following. This is the board's meeting held in a public setting as opposed to a public meeting. Public comment may be allowed. If so, it is a privilege as opposed to a right. Particularly, the board is only required to provide a way for patrons to view the meeting. It is not a requirement to host visitors and patrons. The board could simply provide a streaming link. Any visitor/patron who engages in disruptive or disrespectful behavior or comments will be removed immediately. The board president will then recess the meeting until the individuals are removed. The board may choose to resume the meeting with or without patrons in attendance. Again, this is a board's meeting, not a public hearing or discussion. Okay, now that that's stated, I'd also like to recognize that we have 2 new board members that will come on board in the January meeting, Jim Rubidoux and Ronnie Tegens. Welcome aboard. Now I have some awards of recognitions that we gonna read out, and we'll have the first person come up, Denny Gray. Denny here.
He was.
Denny, come on in. Okay, Danny, you've been recognized with a recognition award. I'm going to read this out. I would like to recognize Denny Gray, head custodian of Hiawatha High School. These last couple of years, Denny and his staff have worked and went over and beyond in their duties with all the extra work put on them due to the COVID crisis. His extra effort of keeping the school clean is more than grateful. Thank you. All right, we're going to get a picture. Right. Okay, thank you, Danny. Okay, Danielle Hill. Come on up.
It might be easier.
Probably the easiest. We'll just leave that open. I am nominating Daniel Hill because as a parent, I enjoy listening to my child talk about how great his day was because of his math class. My kiddo has not enjoyed math in the past because he didn't think he was good at it. But this week, it was so fun, and I understand everything he stated. He was so worried about starting 5th grade and being at a new building. I appreciate her trying to ease the kids' fears and keep them entertained. Okay, last but not least, Kim Crowder.
Like a special entrance.
Yeah. Okay. This ADM grant is awarded to organizations who align with companies' beliefs and values. Helping families who struggle to provide quality food is one of their outreach projects. Kim was approached by Jay Briles and David Overdick about writing a grant. They began the process by filling out paperwork through ADM. Next, Kim added the necessary information pertaining to our programs. The grant amount is $10,000 being split evenly between the HES Backpack Buddies program and the HMS/HHS campus covered programs. Mrs. Crowder, we appreciate your extra efforts in securing this grant for our students, parents, and community.
Awesome.
Okay. move on. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just showed it.
Yeah. Okay, item E, comments from the superintendent.
The only thing I would say is that I'll talk about health report during the superintendent report.
Okay. Item F, consent agenda.
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed 7-0. Item G, comments from the public. We got any public speakers? If we do, I need to read this again. Any public speakers, raise your hand. Okay. Hang on, guys. Okay. The Hiawatha School Board welcomes public comment. Generally, the school board members will not respond to public comment during the meeting. Each speaker may speak up to 2 minutes. The board clerk will time each speaker, and the speaker should conclude their remarks when the buzzer sounds. If there are a large number of speakers, the board may limit the total time for comment or may reduce the time allotted for each speaker. The board president may ask groups with the same special interest to appoint a spokesperson. All comments should address a matter related to Hiawatha Public Schools. The school board will not hear public comment that involves a complaint about an individual staff member, a personal action, a student disciplinary matter, a complaint about an individual student, or pending litigation. The school board expects that each speaker will provide their full name, be courteous, modeling for our students how one can respectfully disagree with others' views. Speakers will address their comments to the entire school board and not to one individual board member, nor to the superintendent, to a staff member, nor to the audience. Speakers will not engage in personal attacks. Speakers will present their comments from the public sitting area provided for them. Public comment is appropriate when the board president announces comments from the public. Speakers are called upon when the board president acknowledges the speaker's raised hand. Speakers may not speak more than once on a specific topic. So with that said, we have, raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Okay. Virgil? Yeah, you can.
A little different twist tonight. You heard it before. If you read the information and I sent the board members previously, I hope to reacquaint you with that in case I didn't make it clear. I would really like to have somebody go back through the archives and find out how you're supposed to elect or select board members. Last year or 2 years ago, we did it. We're using Plan C, and this year we use Plan B. I don't like Plan B. I don't think it's representative of what was intended. Well, let me try to give you in chasing it down, I talked with Mr. Mosier and I talked to some board members and that sort of thing. Nobody really knew for sure. I went to the county courthouse and found out that had kind of a snooty remark about everybody votes in the primary and I'm sorry, just those in the district vote in the primary and everybody votes in the general. Now that's a broad statement and I don't think it applies to the board that we have here. I'll just try to take an example here and see if I can square it up for where I'm coming from. If Randy Garber runs for the House of Representatives in the state of Kansas, we have a primary, Republican, Democrat. After we've done that, then we have a general election. And you'll notice in the general election, we're not voting statewide for every representative district out there. In the general election, you're voting for the people that elected you in that district. So you have a state representative then that is part of the larger entity of the state of Kansas legislature. But also, it doesn't mean that you're representing all the rest of the districts in the state. So I think since there are 7 districts, there must be a reason for that. And I think if you have a board election, and I'm in District 6, I think I realize we didn't have a primary, but that should take the place of primary. And then we get into voting, and I think the people in that district should elect who they want to represent that district. I don't think we don't have 7 at-large districts. So I'd like you to, and the Board of Education, if you agree with me or think there's a fallacy or something, you've got an opportunity to change it. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, I'd like to have you address that, Superintendent. Yeah, come on up, Larry. Sorry, as soon as you say your name.
Larry Stover. I live here in town and own farmland in the district. And as a Christian man, I'm concerned how my taxes are being spent. I want to start by reading a few lines from the superintendent's message in the newsletter put out by the school. Due to time, I'll just read this. Rapid change is not often welcomed. Then again, few people are comfortable with any type of change, and organizations can be even more apprehensive. If this change is not CRT, then why are there so many lawn signs saying equity, inclusion, and diversity around this town? I wonder if the superintendent's handpicked liberal council have any of in their yards. It's funny, as I tour other towns, I do not see these signs. Why, just here in Hiawatha. I have in my hand, this was on the front page of the Topeka Capitol, November the 2nd. And it said, no CRT being taught in Kansas schools. What a laugh. My daughter teaches in the Seaman School District and was required to go to a seminar before school started that the district paid the company of Panorama $40,000 to put on. This company is part owned by Secretary of State Merrick Garland's son-in-law. No wonder those of us who oppose CRT in our schools are now labeled domestic terrorists. Back to the Topeka paper article. I'll ask, is Seaman School District and is 415 not located in Kansas? CRT is not only racist, but it's a teaching method. We need to know what goes on in the classrooms when the doors are closed. My daughter will quit before she ever teaches this rot. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Derek?
Jerry Aller, Brown County Home Guard. I too would like to congratulate Jim and Ronnie as the new school board members, and to the outgoing members. It's a thankless job, and I saw the last meeting lasted 4 hours, so we thank you for your service and time. And anyway, I have a job too as a person. Our country was founded, we the people tell local government and the government what to do. The government or the local government doesn't tell us what to do. Now, in the last privileged meeting, it was asked about DEI, division, exclusion, and intolerance group. Did we get grants or funds for this? We still don't know. Who chose the material? Is it Panorama, like Mr. Stover asked? And anyway, from the very start, it just seems that USD 415 has put us into groups, whether it's at a privileged meeting or in public. It's been said that you've heard enough of the anti-DI people. And whether it's a privileged meeting or in public, we're called the nut gallery. And in the end, what have we accomplished? We have an unholy alliance between the BCU, the DIE, and the USD 415. And I guess I would like to ask, if you have heard enough from us, what about the students' rights? When they've heard 10 minutes of this DIE training, 10 minutes, 2 minutes, can they say, we've had enough? We don't want to hear it anymore? I mean, in the October 15th Hiawatha World, it talked about DIE was going to do the lifestyle choices and things like that. LBQRSTUVWXYZ is a religion. It's a belief. And it disagrees with my religion. And it's a violation of the First Establishment Clause
Thank you,
of the
Jerry.
First Amendment.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna move on. Yes, item H, go ahead.
All right, we have Jerry McCall here. Jerry, you want to come on up? Jerry's worked with the board for a while, but obviously a lot of interruptions with COVID too, talking about long-range facility planning. You should have a document. with
Jerry,
you.
why don't you come up here and I'll go sit down there?
Oh, okay. You should have a document there, just kind of to follow along as he's presented. So he's here to kind of talk and answer questions that you have, and go from there. You can sit down.
Yeah, sit down.
Be next to the mic that way.
Most comfortable.
Sure, thank you. Thank you. I'm somewhat of a Pfizer guinea pig. I've had 3 shots, so I'm feeling really quite good. Although I did have bronchitis 3 weeks ago, negative on COVID, negative on pneumonia, and then bronchitis. So you just go down the list of what feels good or what doesn't feel good. But anyway, great to be back and good to see all of you, and congratulations to the new board members. I had to pull out the file and I noticed that 2.5 years ago, I guess, I started, which would have been in May of 2019. And I realized that we had a pandemic interruption, but we did take a look at the community, the school district, the buildings, the facilities, of course, the demographics, the budgets, the program, all of those kinds of things that go into the mixture as you get ready to look at the next decade and the next decade. And as a result of the first several years, I put together a concept that said, let's look at the high priorities and give them great attention. And the first one was at the elementary level, because the elementary facility and the number of students there is extremely crowded. In fact, you're short probably 8,000 to 10,000 square feet of space. And so the programs today, and especially the upper grades, just need more space to do what they do with the teachers and so forth.
Mike, can you explain why we're short on space? Because I think people probably don't understand. The programs have been
Right,
added.
we're added programs, yes, and
Because it wasn't that many, 10 years ago, where we had extra rooms down.
yeah,
And it's changed
added programs,
dramatically.
absolutely added
Well,
programs.
I hear comments that years ago we had this many students and it wasn't short. That
Right. But the pre-K is one that's been.
Pre-K
added.
has
We
been
have-
added,
we
and
have all
pre-K
day-
special ed has been added.
And all day kindergarten is another one.
Yep.
Extra.
Yeah, now those aren't in theory taking more rooms, though, all that K should. Well, no,
Yeah,
you're right,
it would,
you're right, it would
yeah.
absolutely.
that doubles it.
So, yeah, so you've got 2, 3, and that would double that from 2 to 4, then you've got 2 pre-K rooms, and you've got intervention rooms with MTSS, so.
So yeah, that's
And
gonna be the
then-
first thing people are gonna
then
hit with
you-
is why do we need more rooms?
There's-
We do.
And also the cafeteria shortage space there, you've been in that gym/cafeteria. room.
And the last bond issue, we didn't really do anything about space down there.
Deferred maintenance,
Yeah, it was just
HVAC,
water.
doors, windows,
That's
what else?
Water.
Water.
Water was
What's that,
huge.
water?
And redid bathrooms.
Okay.
So yeah, I just wanted to clarify why we needed this space.
And I should have made a couple comments about that, but if one goes 10 or 20 years, the increase in special education program offerings, the PK, the addition of numerous paras and so forth, we just have more people in programs. And you can put together quite a list. But so that's why we got a pain there, so to speak. And then the other piece of that was to look at programs at the secondary level that would help replenish the workforce of the community. Because one must have able-bodied replacements to keep a community alive. And the reason that it's so important for Brown County and Hiawatha
We have between 9,000 10,000 people in the county. School district is the second largest governmental unit. And they have a huge responsibility to that total population of 9,000 to 10,000, Hiawatha being a third or more of that. When folks come to a community, it's the jobs, the housing, health services, and education. And in that mixture is this thing called quality of life. And so that's why being a county seat town and the population center, the employment center, the economic heartbeat, in a manner of speaking, of Brown County, it's important that the school district be what I call a catalyst for development to set the pace. And that's why the little calendar came together that you have. How can we take the last 2.5 years? We had 1, 2, 3 phases, I think, that we talked about. But phase 1 was to provide more space for 3rd and 4th grade with an addition to the current middle school, a multi-purpose gymnasium at that location, and then a workforce development center at the high school that would include space for what we might call dirty labs and clean labs for the preparation of people for health services, the world of work, whether it's metals, whatever it may be. And so that was how phase 1 was developed, and also fully utilized within what I call an optimal arrangement, the financial ability of the district. And so phase 1 had approximately 25,000 square feet, give or take, for elementary expansion at the middle school with those auxiliary facilities, and then the new facility of approximately 12,000 square feet or so on for workforce development.
I might say that's the West Campus replacement, but nobody understands what that is. We're looking to attach the West Campus to the building, if I remember correctly, and have one facility instead of the split campus.
Yes, the ultimate, as we look at 2030, 2040, 2050, and 2050, 30 years out there, if you look at your rearview mirror, that was 1990. So we're looking just a little ways ahead, but believe you me, that 3 decades goes by quickly. And so we're looking in a phase 1 to take a reasonable step to use our dollars to buy as much as we can. And then the phase 2 and 3, the centralization and the fully developed campus, which you have, which the acreage and the facilities you have there now are just exemplary. So for fully utilizing that investment. And the process here says, okay, let's refine phase 1 materials. In the months of January, March, start to assemble a professional team to get to a point of decision. And that gives the new board members 2 to 3 months there to become well acquainted with what phase 1 would be and how it relates to a phase 2 and 3, and probably gets you to 2040 or 2050. And that means taking a look at what architectural engineering firms could do, what construction management firms could do, how bonding company fiscal agents fit into this mixture. So we have construction know-how, we have design, and we have the people that buy and sell money. Those are the kinds of expertise you need at the table to help you deal with this kind of a project. And then a few months later, after we've gotten proposals, advertising and getting proposals from those people, because I don't think we need to spend our time looking at new buildings in Florida and Minneapolis and so on. We're doing additions, very simplistic additions. And so who does the best job at that? Selecting a firm that can do that. Who has the best fit as a construction management company, if you wish to go in that direction, and the best track record to select the best materials that have the greatest life expectancy and efficient utilization, and then the financing expertise of what's the ability of our district to stay within a reasonable kind of budget expenditure. And then once you have all of that data and information in May or June, then there'd be would be schemes of concepts and drawings, so you could really see exactly where things might be placed and what it might look like. And then in July and August, you take a hard look at community leadership and who would want to help support this effort. And then September and October, which is a year from now, with the assistance of what I'm going to call a bond citizens committee, get their astute judgment on whether this community has a package that business leadership, parents, and staff can support. And then you can make the decision from there. And November, December of next year, make the decision, and that's quite flexible. You could go January, February. Make a decision on a resolution. Yes, we're going to do this because we know that once we have the bond issue and it's voted on and have a successful bond issue, it's 2 years plus before we open the door and have the chairs available. And so this is almost 5 years from the time I started in 2019. That's a half a decade. And so it takes quite a few small steps as you gain speed and start to run to get to that point of decision. And this indicates the point of decision might be the spring of 2023. And so this is kind of taking us in a whirlwind roller coaster review here of where we've been, what a phase one amounts to, bringing the team aboard and getting this before the Board of Education to make a decision and to arrive in a few months, perhaps a year, at a point of decision is what this calendar speaks to. Questions about the calendar or comments?
So, Derek, if I understand things, and I look here at November, December of 22, you're that's the point of no return, basically. The crossing the Rubicon, this is your decision date.
Yeah,
So is it fair to say everything in between is basically just dipping your toes deeper in the water and getting more information? How would you?
The 9 or 10 months prior to that is the Board of Education getting as much information as they can to be quite comfortable with their decision, and also getting input from community leadership as to the support that the community might have. From the three groups that have the most at stake, let's say, and that's parents, staff, and the business leaders of this community. And so a consensus kind of direction from that leadership helps the boards then make that decision to pass a resolution, and then here comes the ballot for the general or the special, in this case, a special, for the public to respond and indicate yes or no.
I have a question on the first line here regarding closing the South Mill Avenue. I guess I can understand on phase 2 and 3, that might be something to consider when you're trying to combine everything. But if we're not needing to close that for phase 1, I guess I would rather put that off until phase 2 or 3.
I thought phase 1, they were building across that road for the 3rd and 4th to be able to attach it to the main.
I don't know that we've ever gone past circles on a map
Right.
but if I think my understanding would be is if you try to say you've got to have this and this and this and this that you incorporated onto that campus somewhere, then you need to know whether it's feasible to,
Can you go that
can
way?
we do that, whether it's phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3, it kind of, whether that's even an option, it kind of decides where you're going to start plugging those pieces in.
You
Is that
gotta
fair, or-
You gotta know the footprint of the building. you're putting it
Right.
too. It's gonna have a footprint, so.
Yeah,
And that's why you bring the professional team aboard, because they might want to produce 3 different versions for you to look at. One that says, here's the footprint of a phase 1, but this is where you should end up in phase 3. And so what do we need to do now so that we don't have to dig something up or change it? What works best now in phase 1 that also supports their workspace 2 and 3 until you see those by that professional team. Because I'm not an architect, I can't even draw a straight line hardly. And so those talented people would do 2 or 3 alternatives of special relationships of how best to fit that on that facility and best use the dollars and be the most efficient. Now, if that is scrunched too much and then you want to centralize in phase 2 and 3, there's an elementary facility somewhere in that site, that traffic patterns, parking and so on all get into the mixture. Because once concrete is poured, 50 years before anybody's going to even think about changing anything. So they're all related. So one really doesn't know until you have that team aboard that says, let's look at all 3 of those and make sure that what ifs we don't trip.
I just want to make sure when we're looking for a solution, we don't create more problems. It's historically what tends to happen, so.
And that's why the first 6 months, basically, with the professional team is spent doing that. What works, what does not, what works now and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
Well, didn't we also discuss all the utilities that could be under that road and where all that stuff was too? That would be discovered during that phase.
Yes,
Right.
that's why yes, totally. That's why you need all the engineering expertise. In fact,
Right.
when we talk about AE firms, when I look at what those folks do, there's the architectural design piece. But the next 4 professionals, the electrical, structural, civil, and mechanical, are 80% of the building facility also. Because you can have a beautiful, wonderful design, and if mechanical doesn't work properly, you're really in trouble. And electrical also. And civil, if the drainage, and there are many projects where I walk into new buildings and everybody says they're wonderful and wonderful. And I talked to the custodian and he said, well, we just had to squeegee that out because water came in the door here. So, and that's a civil engineering challenge. They need to know where the water runs and where it doesn't from day one. And so all of those have to be blended into the concepts and the planning process.
Do we need to look at some places that have done additions? I know you said we don't need to go to Ford or whatever, but do we need to see what other schools have done? Because we're surely not the first to add on buildings.
In the RFP for the AE firms, which is usually about 3 pages of what they're supposed to do, and that's something board, committee, superintendent, and so on, I can produce copies of that, but you'd certainly approve what goes to the AE firms and the response. We would indicate the kind of additions we want to know about and their experience in that area. Because as I indicated, we're probably not interested in new schools like do in Minnesota or Florida. We're interested in additions, simplistic single-story additions. How many have you done? And then you could call those schools and check out if that firm did it. Do they work 5 years later? So it's a process of following closely when you interview the expertise and the experience of the firm.
Couple different schools of thought. Do you hire the AE first, or do you look at the construction managers first? Because depending on who I ask, I'll get 2 different answers.
On your size of project and addition, single story, and the kinds of data that you need to really start processing a future decision, I would think about the AE firm first and get sketches and so on, because in the RFP, we would indicate the boundaries of what we would expect them to do, including budget and fees and so forth. And then once we select, because you may get 6 firms that respond and you select 3, and 3 you might want to visit a location and actually talk with folks or whatever else. But at that point, then when you select the final firm, you may then want to interview CMs or CMRs and get further information about today's cost and their experience of what's going on, which they'll know because they've been out on a site somewhere pouring concrete that day, so they'll know. And then you start to use that data and information in the process of really shaping your opinion.
And I should have pointed out the two different answers I get depends on if that's the architect people or the construction people. They'll each say that first, so. Wasn't really sure about that.
And if it were to be a new building on a new site, I might have a different thought on that, but this is not. This is a simplistic addition, single story. And so that pretty much narrows it to the expertise we're looking for.
Mhm.
So in this process that you're setting out here, what would be your role in assisting with this? Because I have other things to do. But, I mean, really, I'm not sure how to go about some of this. So what's your role in this?
Well, knowing that you have a variety of items, since you were an elementary principal today,
Well, and substitute teaching.
and maybe taught music, I don't know, I doubt that.
That's a strong word, not accurate.
But anyway, it's to be an assistant to the chief executive to run errands, basically. But 40 years experience in a dozen states doesn't hurt. And so on fees, for example, on your kind of project, we should be paying a given amount for architectural services. That's it. We ought to set that right up front, what we expect. And the CM also, depending on whether it's CM or CMR, and see if they can, in a competitive world, meet that particular percentage. And there's various ways to do that. Is to monitor most phases of it and be a part of the team as you go from step one to getting to a point of decision. And I'll take 2 minutes or measure to tell you about what I started about the same time in Northwest Iowa, which was over 18 months. The recommendation, it was a district of about 1,200. The city and the school district purchased 80 acres of land, school district took 40, and the city 40, and the school district built a new elementary. The city built or planned to develop play fields for the community recreation department, which was soccer fields, baseball fields, and 90 lots for new housing. Now that project was a combination of school district, city, and economic development, and it passed in that community by 65%. And so if you provide a variety of community kind of needs in your efforts, your success rate will jump considerably. And so, and that takes a tremendous amount of work and planning. There were about twice a month meetings with a special committee and the superintendent, board members too, and the superintendent and the city administrators, some others in economic development, on breakfasts of 7 to 8, about twice a month. And so it is a commitment of community leadership to jump into these, but to be successful and to be what I call the catalyst for community development, it takes that spirit and effort. And most of our projects have some kind of joint support. It may be on the work development center that private industry says, I will provide all the equipment in that container that you're going to build. For example, I'll provide all of the welders and everything because they're going to be trained to go right to my assembly line to work. If it's robotics, welding, whatever it might be, or health services, or whatever it might be. So partnerships become very key in the early stages of who wants to support what, but extremely important.
Well, I just had a lot of comments about, we know our gymnasium for our kids, it's for our sports. The Armory is pretty much, you can't have concession stands there. Before you go in, you got to clean it beforehand, you got to clean it afterhand. I mean, wipe it completely down. So I know a new gym is high on a lot of people's list.
When they get activated, we have no access to the National Guard.
Exactly.
So there's time.
But we got parents that got kids that are being bounced around from either in the morning to late at night, or not late at night, but 5:30, 6 o'clock practices. But anyway, We've been, seems like, what, 2019, right? 2019.
Actually.
May of
Yeah.
2019, 2.5 years ago.
COVID's kind of threw us behind the curveball.
So Jerry, I have a question about the item one here, and I'm talking about traffic study. What is it? How long does that take? I think if we talked about a previous meeting, it didn't seem like it was a very quick process. So what are we talking about?
It's usually 3 or 4 months, but it depends on their calendar. And I think the folks I talked to were out of maybe Topeka or Lawrence. So I think they've done work for the city before. And it would, it depends on their calendar, but the 3 to 4 months sometimes is fairly reasonable.
Civil engineer, what are they? Civil engineers? Or?
Yes, yeah, traffic studies usually civil engineering.
Any other questions for Jerry? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you kindly, and thank you for your 33 meetings last year.
Yeah. Hopefully hopefully that record won't be beat. So,
Thank you. kindly.
okay, item I, District Capital Projects Facility. Chris?
How are you guys doing tonight? Good. I see that on the agenda, we've got the bid after my report, so I'll do my regular report first. I wanted to update everybody as we can remember the brownout at last board meeting. I contacted our insurance company to find out what our deductible was. For anybody's knowledge, it's 10,000 for the buildings. We have not met that with damages. So it wasn't as bad as it could have been. The list of so far of what we've had go wrong. The HMS middle school walk-in freezer compressor repair, it blew up. The middle school hot water circulation pumps, for those of you who are not aware of that, there's special pumps in the water lines that get hot water clear to the end of the other building. We had one of those burn up. Now, obviously, the blower motor that was smoking, that was not as bad.
No
as I
one
thought.
noticed that. Though.
Hmm?
No one noticed that.
No one noticed that. No, we didn't notice that. And then in the ag shop, there was 2 big lights up top, and those are burnout. So so far, all of the totals have not come close to the $10,000. Heath did advise us to keep track. Sometimes with brownouts, things show up later in life. We have some maybe failures or unexplained down the road. As of right now, I had reported last time the boiler at the wood shop. It was not wired correctly. Got the controls wired correctly and the interlocks wired correctly. And as of now, we're not having any problems with the boiler. So that's good news. We were having some issues with it. I was fighting with it every day, and finally we got the problems figured out. Helps when you get in the book and you read how to wire it and it explained. Luckily, the book was there. So we're able to get that fixed. Obviously, we've had some COVID that has went through, and we have went ahead and sprayed. We're spraying every night at the elementary school, basically all of our facilities at night. With our vital oxide, we went back to the same protocol that we did before. So every night, the custodians are going through every room and cleaning all buildings and all surfaces again at night.
So is that our fogger that we
Yeah,
call
we have
fogger?
foggers. Yeah, vital oxide foggers. And you can tell they're using it again. We went through about 55 gallons of it already. So they're using it quite regularly like they're supposed to. So that's just an update on that. Just a quick blurb, let everybody know, put some minds at ease that yes, we are back to our protocol of cleaning at night with the foggers and the vital oxide. And that's the only part of that part of the report that I have.
Okay.
So you want me to go on with the next part? Sure. Okay.
We're at item J now.
Oh, yeah, item J, bid for the 22/01 building management systems.
Okay, we had 2 bids come in. First bid was from Building Control Systems. It is a Siemens system, and I'm people sure are aware of Siemens as a big name brand. Their price does not include a new server. So the new server would be on us to buy. It's roughly 1,500 to 2,000 is what they told me the specs would be on it. So that's in addition to this. Based on the specs that we provided them, their work could be started on 12/1, and the price was $74,313. The second bid came in, P1 Group. Price includes a 1-year maintenance agreement and free call support, up to 1 hour on the phone on each time. And they provide the server at no additional cost. So in their bid, their server was included. It was a standalone server that would sit at the middle school. Their work can get started, worst case scenario, 3/15 of 2022. They didn't want to promise. They said sometimes with the availability of parts and electronic equipment, he said sometimes they say it'll be 4 weeks and it takes 12 to get the parts. Sometimes they say 12 and it comes in 4 weeks. So they said worst case scenario, 3/15 would be when they could start. The price for P1 Group was $36,823. Out of that $36,823, $13,000 of that was an annual maintenance agreement. So in that first year, we would pay the $36,823, and that gives 1 year of maintenance agreement. And what that basically, I needed clarification from them on that. And that allows us 4 hours of building of service on site per building. So 12 hours per quarter. So they would be on site every 3 months, checking the system, making sure everything's working. Any tweaks that we need to be done, they would do free of charge. Well, not free of charges with the maintenance agreement. After the first year, they would send a renewable contract, and it would be the $13,000 renewable every year after that.
This is
So this is
7,000.
Do what?
After the first year, a $7,000 service maintenance agreement.
That is incorrect. It would be 13,000 a year. It would be 13,000. I just talked to them, confirmed that today. The original bid was 7,000. The estimate that they had was 7,000. When they put their numbers to it and put their bid together, that's why I called for clarification today, because the number was not matching up.
Yeah. that's
So,
double.
yeah, and
Is
so
that hourly wage once, or hourly time start once they get here, or is that when they leave?
they don't charge with the maintenance agreement. They do not charge travel. They do not charge the person on site. It would be when they get here. 4 hours when they get here, no. And then any tech support that I would need, I can call them on the phone. They can dial in for free whenever I need them with no charge. Currently, with no maintenance agreement, they charge us per minute on the phone and a service charge.
How
So
long does it usually take you when you're on the phone with them?
when I'm on the phone, I would say I've called them 4 times and it's been anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes. So,
And this maintenance agreement, does that include like filters need change?
no, this is just the management system. This
Okay.
has nothing to do with the air conditioners themselves. This is literally the controls of what allow, just the computers that make everything work. Yeah,
So we pay quite a bit to have the filters changed too.
we do. We have air filters plus change those.
HVAC's very expensive.
And with COVID, we have went from 2 times a year to 4 times a year. And that was at the recommendation of health people to change our filters more often. So, and of course, with COVID, the MERV rating has to go from 8 to 13. It has to be a better filter, so there was some expense there that we've incurred.
A question I have here is, we're putting in a new system. And then we have the maintenance after that. How long before we have to put another new system?
Yeah.
5 years.
Waiting for that.
I talked with them at length on that, and I said, look, I don't want a repeat of what we had last time. We don't want 5 years, and they are assuring me, they don't, of course, it's typical assurance. We're not seeing any end of life on this new equipment. So
This is the first year.
Not been sold yet.
it hasn't been, yeah.
So.
I'm gonna be honest with you, if I was to be honest, I would say 5 to 7 years, you're looking at it again. Just for example, at the server level, servers will need to be updated, even just the server itself. Pretty typically, in a server setup, in a computer setup, a server will need to be updated every 5 to 7 years.
That's not the whole system.
That's not the whole system, but
So on this BCS one, it says their annual subscription
Yes, they
Is
have,
that their maintenance?
no,
agreement?
that is just
So
for you to access their system.
Do they offer?
They do, and
that
it was not,
maintenance?
they did not include that in their bid.
So it might be 13,000.
It could be 13,000 as well.
Well, but I think it's a relevant number because right now, although this looks really cheap on the front end with P1, if you subtract off the 37, that gives you basically another 37 that gets you up to what this building control services is. It's less than 3 years at $13,000 a year before you're at even money. So if it is a substantially, because $13,000 for a maintenance contract seems like a lot.
5 years.
Yeah, right. If you're looking at the life of 5 to 7 years or whatever, there could be a crossover point between the two.
Well, the building controls, did they say how long their systems usually last?
They did not give me any date on that, no.
Can we find out?
I can ask them, yeah.
I mean, I hate to kick the can at all, but
So a couple questions, Chris. I want you to kind of talk about, because we've talked about the reason one of those bids was a lot cheaper than the other.
Okay, so I'm gonna put it in an analogy that I had to explain to my, some other people.
Superintendent.
And superintendent too. Imagine you have a problem with your car. And one company is gonna replace the engine. And one person is just gonna say, well, let's give you a new car. That's kind of the analogy we're looking at. P1 is considerably cheaper because they can use a lot of their boxes, wiring, relays, things like that. They're throughout all those buildings, they can reuse all of that, just like the brakes and the tires and everything on the engine. Siemens, building control systems, when they come in, they would have to take everything out and basically sell you a brand new car. So if that's the easiest analogy, I can explain it to you.
But the car that P1 sold us the first time hasn't been that with me.
Yeah, well,
and that's just it.
Mhm.
And those standard BCS contract, there's wiring is not included, it says reuse existing. So
Yeah.
They wouldn't put all the wiring. They would reuse
Yeah.
what people-
Well,
they're gonna reuse what minimal stuff they can use. If you look at their.
I would
contract.
like to know if we could find out what their systems, how long they last, because we know how long the one we got now is lasting.
P1 would not give me a definite answer because I asked that. I said, I do not want a repeat of every 5 years having to do this. And they said, at this time, all equipment that we would be putting in, they see no end of life.
As I recall in previous discussions, it kind of came out that P1 gave us systems that were kind of getting towards the tail end. Is why we got them cheaper.
Correct.
So with the Siemens, I would hope we'd be getting it more towards the front end.
Same with P1 also, though.
Their system's gonna be.
Their system is brand new. The stuff that they'd be putting in is brand new to also. I mean, it's right up their newest and latest and greatest, as you would say.
Is that the J?
And I'm also wondering, well, let's say worst case scenario, and I'll put an exponent next to that, just knowing how long everything is taking right now.
Yeah.
I know what last winter was like. And you're looking here, what was the time frame on BCS again?
12/1. They could start 12/1.
And if you're waiting till March,
You can,
what happens to us in February if we don't have control?
you, I'll just be at every school, adjusting them manually all day. I mean, because that's kind of basically currently what we have, situation we have right now is the controls are hit and miss. 70% of the time I can adjust them from my iPad. 30% of the time I have to manually go to the buildings. It doesn't help that I have no thermostats in the rooms. So I have to basically go reset everything, make sure the computer, and then once the computer starts talking, then I can send a signal to change some
Is
stuff.
that part of both bids, put thermostats in?
No, that would be a totally separate. It'll be a totally separate program. Yeah. Totally separate idea.
But when this is flying right, you have to do nothing.
Correct.
So
It's all automated. It reminds me of Terminator Skynet. It's all automated. It does everything all by itself. It looks at the trends and changes everything. So
I'm willing to give this new company a shot, quite honestly. That's where I'm at.
Well, especially at the time.
I was gonna ask that Siemens is the controller of the other, and the other P1 is Jace, or is it PCG?
no, so Fire Lake is the system that is in currently in our system, in our buildings. Fire Lake was acquired by P1 2 years ago. So it is a Fire Lake system, and P1 now owns that company.
I think we're missing a big component of knowing what the service contract is, especially if we're considering that second one. I don't mind having a special meeting to do it because it's a time, but when you're talking, you know, the service contract being a third of what the installation costs are, a sixth of the other one.
Right.
Then you start to get where that matters within your lifespan of replacement, where it
Yeah, sure.
can change things.
So just for clarification, you guys want me to reach out to BCS and find out what their maintenance agreement would be for a year?
That way, compare.
So you compare, because that's the only thing that I didn't see anywhere in there. Now, I know that P1 does not have a yearly subscription.
So you know that's a zero.
That's
versus that
zero
27,
versus that
yeah.
2,700. I
Yeah.
do know that. But they're making that up on the 13,000 a year, I'm sure.
Right.
You know,
If you want to do that, we can, Levi and I can find you want to do like a 7 a.m.
After we're gonna have to do it before Thursday, if we can.
I can make a phone call in the morning, find out.
I'm gonna say Wednesday morning. I mean, I'm out from Thursday till next Tuesday. I'm out of town. But I don't,
And you leave when again?
I leave Thursday morning.
I'm good Wednesday. if that gives you time.
I can make a phone call to one guy
They
tomorrow.
can't tell us by then, they probably don't want to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's just literally one phone call and I can find out that
Well,
question.
maybe that service contract's part of that.
Yep, we don't know.
Don't know.
Do we have a service contract currently?
No.
No.
You know, guys, I'm just going off of how much P1, I mean, you're paying for what you get too. And you know, you want to talk about cars, I mean, are we buying a Cadillac or are we buying a pedal car? So,
I can't.
I wouldn't want to.
Dodge.
but anyway,
Brian Dodge.
I just know that it's the years that I've been on the board that we've had several discussions with P1, several discussions. So let's find out what their service contract
Okay.
is and then let Lonnie know tomorrow and then we'll go from there.
I'll do that.
Okay, tentatively, we'll plan on a Wednesday, the 10th, 7 a.m.
Are you recommending a service contract? I mean, you would want to get.
I will put it, I made 4 phone calls to P1 so far this year. And they have been up at least 8 times and they charge us a phenomenal fee every
Mhm.
time to come up physically, at least $1,000 a time.
Since we know we're using it, we'd be better off to pay,
We would be better off.
prepay and get a better rate.
Prepay, get a better rate, and they're guaranteed to be up here every 3 months.
Mhm.
They physically come 4 hours. So as far as the service people at P1, I have had no problems with them. Now, I understand there were some construction issues back in the day. So, I mean, I don't know, but the people that I've worked with P1 service technicians have been right on.
No, they didn't write you your quote though.
No,
Mm.
no,
Yeah.
corporate. not
Right.
the quote. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I think I would just ask them tomorrow.
I will.
Call them, say that includes your service contract.
I
right?
will.
Right.
So I guess how important is,
The first amount accounts for the first service contract.
Okay.
So that 36,000 had the first year. of
so
service
what's our
contract.
risk by
No, I meant,
December versus March, I guess?
Well,
Chris works a
Not
lot.
having control during
Not
that
ha-
coldest time.
not having control is gonna be, basically, I'm gonna spend a lot of time at buildings when it's cold. Because what happens is, I'll be honest with you, what happens is the system is stuck in a loop kind of for summer. Okay, so what happens? After 2 hours, it automatically reverts back to 69 degrees. When it's 20 below zero, when it goes to 69 degrees, people are gonna be cold. You know, it needs to be 73, 74. So I have to run over there especially at the elementary school, every hour and a half. And I can lock that system in for an hour and a half and that's it. It automatically reverts back out.
Would you still have to do the wide open thing that you did before in the one set of classrooms?
No,
Okay.
no,
Okay,
that was a different
problem.
problem.
Okay.
That was a different problem.
All
No.
right, I guess one last question for you. Is there any crossover? So if we choose to go with BCS
Mhm.
and not P1, is there still P1 equipment where they're gonna have to work together somehow?
No. No, that was one thing P1 did say. If you go with the other company, whatever company you go with, obviously it'll be completely a new slate. You'll work with a whole different group, a whole different company. It'll be a whole different.
But P1 doesn't own any other components.
Well, they service all of our units. So in some ways, yes, they would be working together in that respect.
unless we go through them for service.
Well, no, like Siemens is controls only. They don't do the HVAC.
Rooftop
They don't do the
units.
rooftop unit. So yes, you are absolutely correct. If you go with Siemens or you go with BCS, you're gonna have BCS systems, Siemens systems running P1 equipment. So then you're
Sounds
gonna
like
have,
finger pointing, so that's. gonna be.
it'll be, that's your problem, that's my problem, that's my problem.
But you got good service techs. you
I
said.
do have good service
So-
techs, so I don't
That'll
really,
help.
I don't really worry about
Right.
the HVAC techs. They're good. You know, but what's gonna happen is, I'll give you an example. They go up to a rooftop unit and they say, well, the controls are not working correctly. Currently, they pick up a phone and call one of their controls guys. P1 would call their controls guys, say, this isn't working. The control guys would work with the HVAC guys, get the problem worked out. I've seen that happen 2 or 3 times. Now that would be, we're done, call the other guy, and we can't do anything until they get up here. And so there could be a little bit of problem there, just a little bit. But I will get clarification for you guys in the morning.
Plan on Wednesday at 7 a.m.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yep.
You want to do that meeting via Zoom or here? Here's fine.
Yeah.
Levi? Got it?
Okay, item L, special, or item K, superintendent's report.
Okay, I've got several things here. Virgil actually brought up a good point earlier, and I wanted to kind of just relay in case people are asking. So the voting method seemed to be a question, and the reason was, and I'm just going to read some things that I've written. The method of electing school board members varies among school districts and across states, and all board members are elected at large by the citizens in some districts, for example. Other districts, we have, precincts or whatever term we're using for that. So those are about voting plans. Voting plan for our school board elections determined by the school board. Historically, voting plan B has been the method. Now, we did actually find a formal document that was in 2006, I believe, where we declared that voting plan B. Here was the problem. In 2020, mistakenly, voting plan C was used, which, for example.
Well, can you define what B and what C
Oh, yeah,
are?
so B, the one that you just got through working in, is during during primaries, you only vote within your precinct. But it's an at-large, or everybody gets to vote for everybody in the general election. And that was what this district declared back in 2006, and probably prior to that as well. But in 2020, voting plan, voting plan C was utilized. Voting plan C is you only get to vote for. So where I live, I could only vote for you, and you didn't run against anybody the last time. Okay, so I would have only been able to vote for the race that had the 3 candidates in it. I couldn't have, and the at-large if it was open. Everybody votes for at-large. But I couldn't have voted for the other race that was contested. I couldn't have voted in that. I couldn't have voted in the race that was uncontested. A mistake was made at the courthouse level, and the wrong voting plan was used in 2020. That has been established. Now, you could probably say no harm, no foul, because what do we know about the races in 2020?
They were not
They
contested.
were all uncontested. So I suppose that I don't even know what to think if that had not been the case. And those are contested. Wouldn't know what you do. Do you do a do-over? I really don't know. So that has apparently been rectified, but yeah, we
And that was done at the clerk's office.
at the clerk's office, yes. And for example, I know that, what's Donovan? Yeah, Donovan West School District uses that other plan. So we're using the same plan that D West uses. So it can be done a lot of different ways, and I know that we've talked about that a little bit in the past. There are some districts do, everybody's at large. That's a common one. My understanding, if you were to, since you're using this voting plan B right now, it's kind of like your grandfathered in. You don't have to make any adjustments if you continue to use it. If you were to go to like just a different voting plan, then you have to really, in theory, you have to use census data and make sure that there's some equal distribution among voting electorates. So it can get pretty messy, and I suggest that's why districts went to all at large, so they didn't have to mess with that. But it's really neither here nor there. We're supposed to be using voting plan B. We actually did in this election, but what made it look weird was the election 2 years ago. So I just want to kind of clarify
And
that.
you just to clarify, you did find the document, you said circa
I have
2006.
seen that. I'd be glad to send it to you.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so anyway, but that is what I guess, legitimize it at the board level or at the district
Yes,
level.
so there is
that's
some
the appropriate
document.
one. Yeah, okay.
Now, of course, if they didn't find one, they're just gonna look back at all the previous elections and see how it was
Sure.
done historically. And that's originally what we thought it was
So
historic.
are you saying voting plan C, we would have to make sure that there was using census data to make sure that all,
That's my understanding. Yeah,
with B, you don't?
well, because you're already using it, it's like me and grandfather did. I have to make a change on that, but I can find out more about that. But really today, I just wanted to clarify, how did we get here? What went on with that? So that people in the public have an understanding of that. Questions about that part?
No, I was just gonna add in that a couple of years ago, I just threw around the idea of what would it look like if we tried to redistrict in a way in order to maybe get more people to run, because it always seemed like there was a dearth of candidates.
Yeah.
And I remember Lonnie looked into it, and it was, the state had to get involved because they had to look at making sure you had equal representation amongst whatever precincts or districts or whatever you wanted to call it as far as numbers go. There was a lot of higher level oversight, I guess, probably to prevent gerrymandering and that type of thing. So it's not an easy thing to change. And if I remember right, it actually went to a public, if we changed districts,
Yeah,
we'd
so
have to
we'd
go to a public
to
vote
And then you couldn't actually use that until
the next
there's
cycle
the
or
next
something.
cycle, exactly, like after yeah, you had to make that decision after that election, but
Mhm.
yet before a certain time in the spring.
Right. So it couldn't benefit you during the same, basically, yeah, politically.
But anyway, that's how we got there. Just wanted to point that out. All right, health status update. You have a document, and I'll do it at the same time. This is our most recent COVID numbers here. You can kind of tell that we reached a peak, I would say 2 weeks ago. We're a little bit on a downward trend. So that you have that information there. I guess the question I would have would be, do you want, how do you want information to go out about that? Do you want us to do periodically report to the public about, hey, here's what the COVID numbers are looking like right now? Not every day or every hour, because we can't be tethered to that like that, but find a reasonable amount of time and say, hey, we're gonna try to update this every week, whatever number we decide. If like that would be productive, because I do get questions about that. If you want, we could certainly figure out a way to put that and make that viewable. Well, put some numbers, not exactly the same thing, because we're not going to be updating it that frequently.
And where would that be located?
We can put it on our website. The website would be the place. If you'd like us to do that, we can certainly do that. That way people can, they can make informed decisions about those,
Yep.
you know, that type of deal. So I'd be happy to start working on that. I'll let you update, or I'll let you know.
So the numbers are actually down compared to 2 weeks ago.
They're going down right now. We had a lot of other illnesses that are still going on that are not necessarily COVID. We have a pretty good run of strep and flu. Flu season is going to be upon us. And so that added to a lot of numbers of absences too. So staff numbers have certainly improved. We'll have some more back tomorrow. So it used to be, it was kind of an even swap. Somebody would come out of the COVID quarantine or whatever, somebody else would go in. Now it's more like 2 or 3 go out and 1 comes in. So our trends.
So back to your reporting, I mean, what would you propose?
I would propose weekly. I think that's the best thing to do. Otherwise, I think we're going to get a lot of confusion. I think if we know it and say if we're going to do it weekly, honestly, choosing the day, I wouldn't want to choose that right now. I'd want to talk to our nurses about, hey, what's the best day, you know, because I can automatically, I know that the weekend has an impact. So when's the best time to report that impact? Maybe it's the middle of the week. Maybe it's the middle of the week.
So just to, I guess, echo the question asked by some staff and patrons, parents, is it possible for us, or even legal, if there is a positive in a child's classroom, to be able to send notice to the parents of the children in that classroom that there was a confirmed positive in that class?
Well, that I can't probably answer, but I can find out.
Okay, that would be, I know that speaks to the heart of some of the concern for some of it, basically that they don't know if there's any direct cause for concern. Yeah, there's one in the school, but.
It'd be easier to do in elementary, for sure.
Right, that's
Than it would
true.
be in the high school where.
That's probably where the biggest concern is.
Yes, in the elementary.
Right.
Yeah,
Because those kids
Yeah.
can get vaccinated. At least, well, not yet anyway.
right.
But I'm not for sure what the benefit of putting the number of COVID positive cases on our website would be. Are you going to put influenza? Are you going to put strep? Are you going to put other illnesses?
No, but
You
I
just gonna
I
do-
get questions, like people want to know the trend, I guess, are they, how our kids, and that would be the only.
Well, And I feel like if you are allowed to say, send them, or do the seesaw thing, say, hey, our classroom had a positive case. And if that's allowed, then do we need to make
So
it a
you're-
public thing? Because then the people that need to be making the informed decision about the mask or not are the ones that are informed.
Except for in the high school and middle school. Just because to me, if I'm a parent, I've got high school kids, I probably want to know the high school numbers, because my kids have.
They're gonna be mixed and
mixed
matched all day.
In the elementary, I think you're exactly right, but
Yeah,
I'd see it differently probably in high school, and probably even in the middle school too, but
Mhm.
might be different. It could be could be both and. It's what do you guys want? That's the guidance I want from you. We'll do whatever, just let me know. what you want us to do.
Ian's said the same thing. I mean, I'm gonna repeat the same thing. We got a lot of parents that just like to know. And what we can do to inform them would be great, but I don't know how.
I don't think a generic statement of saying we have 10 positive COVID cases is going to put any of those parents at ease. You know what I mean,
Like
honestly.
in the district or in a building or.
Right, I mean, if I had a kid in elementary school and the kid that was in their classroom tested positive, it would be nice to know that, okay, now my kid's got a headache and a sore throat, and there's already been a positive. You would hope that they would parent differently, keep their kid home.
I think to me, that's again, almost a difference in elementary and secondary too.
is there enough cohorting, to use the term, that even by grade level at the middle and high school?
No, I don't
Okay,
think so.
okay.
Those kids know who have it at the high
Yeah,
school.
yeah, that's
So,
true. So.
no, I don't know about the middle school.
So would,
Do they know?
while you put a
They
fine
know.
point on it, theoretically, at the elementary, and then potentially alert parents or however, a building number for the middle school and the high school would give you a relative, are you saying not even that? Yeah.
I just don't know what purpose that would serve.
Yeah,
Just a general trend, it's not gonna tell you whether
Right.
it's safe or not.
Right.
Then you might as well look at the county.
I've heard some really exaggerated things from people, and it would be transparency to say that this is not, what you're hearing is not accurate. That's a common one I've heard.
Did the county,
Huge numbers.
did they start, because I noticed the last time that on Facebook, Brown County posted the number, somebody wanted to know, they wanted them separated by age. Somebody, and I was like, okay. So did they start, I wonder if they started doing that, because they do other counties, I know.
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't seen that yet. If I'm not looking the right place, but I'm not seeing it.
Can find it on the state website.
Active cases, maybe?
Yeah, there's no way they can be accurate on that.
Well, I think a lot of it, if you're, and we went over this last month, if your kid's not feeling good, keep them home.
Right.
I mean, keep them home. We're sending kids to school and I don't know.
we all know that's not happening.
It's not
Right,
happening.
and there's been, and I've been told that parents have been called and they're not coming and picking their kids up in a timely manner. But if your kids aren't feeling good, keep them home.
Right.
So I don't know, I don't know what else more we can do other than that.
You know, we have kids that say, my parent told me just tough it out, and if you need to go home later, call me. Well, that could be probably, 5 years ago, or, I guess it's been more than 2 years
Well-
ago. That was acceptable to some degree, but it's different now. Would you want us to just do the seesaw or whatever for elementary and do these, do this for the, well, I feel like you're gonna do it for two. Why would you not include the elementary on it? But it's, I just want to know what you guys want us to do.
I
Tom's got an
personally,
answer.
say, I personally reference this spreadsheet 5 times a week, keeping tabs on the district. I mean, that's my,
Just to keep
job,
track
right?
of
But-
trends.
but as far as numbers, it doesn't give away too much. It gives them facts of what's going on in the district. So I don't see a problem with,
Putting this out once a week, just like that.
yeah, just the generic,
Yeah.
whatever building, doesn't even have to be,
Quite as in-depth.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Segregating between staff and students and, just the numbers of the building, something like that. I don't know.
You know, when you're off the board, we're gonna have to change what we call it. So, that was called the Keith sheet. We're gonna have to change that. No, we'll still call it that for you in honor.
So is everybody on board with him sending this out once a week or not?
And would you look in at least the feasibility of
If
that
we
for
can
the
do it, we'll
elementary
do it.
school?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
gonna make sure we can, but yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. If we can.
And it'll
do
be
it,
on
that's
the,
what
it'll
we
be on the
should do.
USD 415 website.
And while we're talking about it, because you talked about, rumors about what's going on in school and what's not. I know got an email that sort of intimated that we really weren't taking any precautions at this point. And I know, so for example, Chris was just talking about using the fogger, and I know I'd asked you about using the thermal cameras as people were coming in. Can you just give a brief overview of what we are still doing in school?
We are still obviously pushing this hand washing and the sanitizer. We are using the thermal cameras. Now, when those were purchased, we had this vision that that was going to catch COVID.
Mhm.
We know that that's not accurate anymore. Because generally kids present and are positive well before they ever have a fever and aren't even with us anymore when fevers are happening. So that has maybe been beneficial for strep throat. That might be the extent of that. So we absolutely still utilize that. We can't space out, you know that. We have difficulty spacing out. Kylie, can you think of other things that, obviously the cleaning, we're still
Right.
doing I call it fogger, probably not the right term, but we're still using.
And that's
that
every night?
Every night.
Okay.
Are there masks on the bus?
Say that again.
Mask on the buses?
They're supposed to be masked on the bus according to,
That's something.
and I see kids come in and, well, I've had some experience at the elementary level here lately, so I see kids come off the bus and I do see masks, so. Sometimes they need a lot of reminding, so, and I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I know everybody who's putting them on and not in every bus, I can't tell you that, but it is a federal requirement right now.
That's our policy.
But was your question, do we have them to give them?
Excuse me, no, my question, we have been asked, what are we doing? That is one of the things we're doing.
I would say we are doing that. It doesn't necessarily reconcile with what we're doing in school, but that's a whole different thing.
so are we, I think back when we started this procedure that we had the protocol of 2 symptoms, right? And that student or staff or whatever should probably go home and be sent home. And then we're gonna provide a test to return that was negative. That was,
Oh, yeah, okay, or,
have we done that? Are we doing that? Are we thinking about doing that?
so we do have kids come home and or leave and they go home and we have no control whether or not they're getting tested.
Right, but.
We're sending them home.
Was
We're sending them
get
home.
tested, come back, or whatever.
So are we having, I think what he's trying to say is, a kid going home today sick and are they coming back tomorrow?
Sure, depending on what they're sick with, we do see that, yeah. But they are supposed to be, Kylie, you may remember this, symptom-free without.
Medication.
Without medication for
72?
48.
72 hours. I think it's 72.
Was
now.
it 72?
And that I don't know the answer to. That's what they're supposed to be.
Did I remember that wrong? I thought that's what. the
No.
plan was.
That they go home and,
If there's 2 symptoms or more.
right, we do
they go
ask them to
home,
get
and then
tested.
they're allowed to come back if it happen to be allergies or happen to be whatever, they can come back with a positive, with a negative test.
I don't think
believe they're-
we can't make
require a
them.
test, yeah. we encourage.
Yeah, I just remember the 72
Or the two
hours,
symptoms are going. I mean,
Yeah.
not the test.
That's, I don't know, I just kind of vaguely remember that.
Well, I think that was when we were going to do that test
Just
to
to-
stay,
yeah.
test to learn.
So right now, let's say a kid is obviously symptomatic in a classroom. What can a teacher do? Can they identify them as symptomatic and say, you need to go to the nurse?
Yes.
Okay. And then if the nurse says, yes, you are symptomatic, I'm gonna make a phone call, and send you home.
And sometimes it's even the office secretaries that will do that. Sometimes it's the middle school principal that will do that. We all have had to take part. No, I haven't. Other people did. So. It's not all three of our buildings have nurses. so you know.
Right. Right.
All right, we will plan on putting that information out. It's gonna take a few days to figure out how best to put that out, and I'll update you on that on Friday. Okay, KSB conference follow-up. Andrea and I were at the Kansas Association School Board Conference follow-up. Andrea, anything, would you report anything or tell a little bit about what you saw?
A lot of people I didn't know. There were a couple of good speakers. I wanted to, today I did not have an opportunity to put anything together because I was busy with the day. But I wanted to put something together to send to Levi about one of the classes that we went to that I thought would be, well, the keynote speaker on trust.
Oh,
I thought that would be a good one. I took a lot of notes on that class. The other was, that I found interesting was the PR. I guess a lot of districts have the ability to have PR people, that's their only job. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, bigger
Yeah.
districts. And they did have some interesting ideas. They're in a lot different climate than we are, obviously, because they're a lot bigger district. I don't know, a couple little things that we could do. Again, I took notes. I will forward them to Levi so that I can share with everybody.
And if, send them, I'll send them out to
Okay.
either one.
Might be Sarah, so.
Yeah, in the end, or in conferences or sessions I went to a lot of, I passed on, I went to a lot of the difference between our construction management or construction manager at risk, and a lot of learning sessions about that, because it just seemed like things I needed to learn a little bit more about. Really, those ones that stand out. During the superintendent day, we had a great speaker, somebody I follow on Twitter, and he's a superintendent, is really about the same thing about getting the positive word out, that he does it every day, and he does every day when he walks to school, because he lives almost across the street. And so he's on his phone, putting out a tweet at that time, a video, and always ends with, hey, we got to take care of each other, things like that. But a lot of good ideas, just a lot of quick thoughts, and some humor in there too. So he was great for superintendents to listen to, but
Is he a Kansas superintendent?
no, he's in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
Something Falls, Wisconsin, but Joe Sanfilippo, but one that I always follow anyway. And then, like I said, a lot of the sessions I went to were about projects, capital projects. Let's see, new board member orientation with board officers. So Tom, Ian, and I are planning on doing an orientation session. We'd like to look at the end of November, 1st of December. We'll get with the incoming board people, see what's going to work. It'd be a couple-hour session. Just, hey, here's where this is. Here's where this information. Here's how this came about. Just quick little things so that maybe there's less feeling of being lost in those first few meetings. So I think I reported the last meeting that I have talked with Doug Meckel about. Obviously, we need to have new boards or boardsmanship training for new members, but that he would actually come out here and do just a refresher course for everybody, and also get the new members at that same time. It was just boardsmanship training, because it's been quite a while. I think the last time it happened was my very first month or two that I was here. So sometime in 17 is when that happened. So I want to talk a little bit about ESSER 3 funding. You're familiar with ESSER funding, the funding that went along with the COVID response. So ESSER 2 funding is it's not drawing to an end, but what's happened is we have obligated the remaining ESSER 2 funds. So I want to just kind of give you a quick brief update on how that's being spent out, the last part of it. More professional development. Some of that professional development includes membership to Greenbush, and so things like when we deal with ESOL, ELL students who are getting English learning skills, and that costs money, and we're not big enough to have somebody who's in charge of that. Okay, so instead we join a Greenbush, and they provide that service for us. So some of it is that, some of it is training such as dyslexia training. Just a lot of different opportunities for us to get people trained better. We didn't do much of that during COVID. Nobody went anywhere, and even the Zooms really weren't about that at that time. Learning platforms, example, Seesaw, Google Classroom, Edgenuity. Student programming, Capturing Kids' Heart is a program being used at the elementary school. You want to call it behavioral, that might be a good way to look at it. It's really cultural and behavioral, culture being the culture of the school. How do we do things in our school? What do we expect of students? How do we treat each other? How do you behave? Also, the JAG program at the high school, that is something we use those funds for. Teammates mentoring at the middle school. I will tell you, teammates mentoring kickoff was supposed to happen 2 weeks ago, 29th of October. That did not happen due to some key people being out. So we do not have I don't know that we have a date, do we?
I think we just confirmed tonight on the 12th, maybe in November.
Oh, okay.
The 19th. Well, the 19th.
Well, you'll let me know. So kickoff will now happen again. We're going to try that again. So anyway, that is a mentoring program. We have, I don't know how many volunteers we have right now, but a lot of volunteers who've already been vetted and gone through the background searches, myself included. And anyway, so we're eager to get that kicked off and get started with that. And like I said, we have the mentors. Now we need the mentees. Academic screening and testing. So FastBridge, reading and math screening, and trying to identify reading and math issues very early with kids, getting them the intervention, the supports that they need. That stuff costs money that we used to have to pay for out of our general budget. We're paying for that out of ESSER as well. We hired an additional social worker. She is actually stationed at the elementary school. We're hiring a full-time substitute teacher. Teachers subs are hard to find. It's really difficult. So the thought being, hey, if we can bring somebody in here and lock them down, they're going to be somewhere every day. It just changes. They're going to be somewhere every day. That gives them stability. They're going to be more like a better resource for us. Plus, we have folks who go out on long-term, maternity leave, for example. Somebody who's a fully licensed teacher, so that's really beneficial for us. Math interventionist, that young professional is working at our middle school right now. It's her first year. And the biggest one is addressing learning loss. And really the whole theme with all the ESSER funding is addressing learning loss due to the pandemic. Summer school, we had our maiden voyage into summer school this last June, and I think we ended on July 1. And
Will we do that again this year?
And the year after, yeah, for sure. And when we get into ESSER 3, and the year after, and it could keep going. So
It's ongoing.
right now, there's an end to it, and we'll talk about that in a second too. But the whole point is trying to fill those gaps, trying to get kids. And the only way to do that really is, the best way to do that is simply more time, longer school year for some of our kids. So that's really, and that's the most expensive. That's where most of the money goes. The personnel costs is where most of that money for summer school goes, is the cost of personnel. So some for busing, some for food service, some for materials, but still most of it is personnel. It's salaries, it's benefits, it's payroll taxes. ESSER 3. So ESSER 2 is it's obligated now. Okay. It doesn't really end until about a year from now. You could spend it all, but you have to have it obligated here within the next couple of months. Well, ours is. ESSER 3 is the next round. So this is $1.6 million. Guys, I'm not sure how to spend that right now. $1.6 million
That's
over
for our
3
district.
years.
Just
For
for
our
450.
district, yeah. I didn't have any trouble spending 740. But this is more than twice, so.
What's the timeline on that?
I have that here
9:30.
through 9:30 of 23.
Full year.
That's not very far away if you think about it.
2 months away.
So a couple things. I'm gonna put up a survey seeking input from patrons on, and giving them a little bit of a parameter. Here's things that it can be spent on and giving them some ideas maybe to look at. Or they can click other and give me some ideas too. We're gonna talk to our site councils about that and any other groups that we work with, for example, Business Roundtable. What would be ways to do this? We need to talk about this more as a board. So I will get you that information, but I want somewhere down the road here, I'm thinking sometime in December, I'd like to put a survey out there and try to get, because I've got to start working on that application. I need to really know that information, what we plan on spending this on before I push that application. So
I guess in your right up here, it's ESSER 2, it's from now through 23.
I'm sorry, that's
That's
ESSER
ESSER
3. Yep, you're right, good catch. ESSER 3.
And does the money just have to be obligated by that point in time or actually spent?
That is obligated. Yeah,
So you then know what's going.
I believe that's obligated.
Is there a
Yes.
time frame where that has to be
Spent.
used?
Usually it's about a year after,
Okay.
and you can't spend it anymore. So, and some of when we say spending, a lot more often than not, it's really reimbursing back. We pay for something, we simply reimburse back. Hey, we use that for this allowable use. So we paid for it out of general fund, but now we're going to.
So who holds that? Does it come to us and we sit on it?
Interesting. So.
County.
It's your money, but you can't have it. It is actually, we only get it after it goes through an approval process at KSDE. Those federal
pay for-
funds,
We pay for whatever we do and then we have to,
we always reimburse it. Yeah, it's always a reimbursement.
it's our money up front.
So this, and what I've just got, I don't know, people do it a different way. So when that ESSER 2 came out, I only did it for a certain timeline because I had no idea really what a summer school cost. And that was the big one. I had no way to really gauge that. So we did the first one to include an estimate for a summer school. I was off on that estimate. It cost considerably more than what I thought. Okay, so now I knew that. So I still had about 60% of that $740,000 left. So then I had to obligate that. And of course, now I had a little bit better information. So I did it in 2 processes. There are bigger districts that did it all at one time. There are small districts that did it all at one time. Most commonly, people did it in at least 2 increments. I did it in 2. You could do it more, but it's a pain to do that. So. Let's see. So allowable uses, that's what it's always about. And there's even some gray area on that. There are some capital uses for that, maybe HVAC and certain other issues or certain other uses. New construction's not one of them. So
Like the MER filters.
yeah, that would be an allowable use, absolutely.
On a new patrol system.
You know, I don't think I have a problem. I've absolutely thought that. I'm just trying to figure out, you need to be able to come back to everything and say, as a result of COVID, or, so, I don't know, there's probably a way. I'll need a really good
You need to
wordsmith.
circulate the air in a certain
Yeah.
classroom more often than you do.
I know there are districts trying to do entire HVAC systems and, anything on a capital thing though, or capital expense, you have to go through a certain process, the same process you do with FEMA. So
And
it's
that is something that they
extremely
went over.
cumbersome.
a lot.
And in some cases, you might be better off to use your own capital outlay to do something. You can avoid a lot of things that end up costing a lot of extra money. All right, I think I've talked enough about ESSER 3 and any questions, and otherwise I'm done.
Not on ESSER 3, but I mean, if we need to go back to COVID, for health update, and because of the grandparents' day coming up, and possibly family night at the elementary school, those types of things. Are we okay with that? That's all right. because you're bringing into an environment that's already had. So
We had Grandparents' Day already for third and fourth grade.
And how can you limit the elementary school when we're not limiting basketball, football games, volleyball
Well, it's
games,
just-
are we?
It's just you're putting 50 people into an elementary class. So,
Are you more worried about coming in and more worried about it getting spread to other adults? I guess I kind of feel like they're adults and they should make that decision. They should know about it. I guess they could look on our website and take a look at but now the problem is it's this Friday. They won't have that. They're probably at that.
And they're spread out in the library pretty well. I mean, tables are,
I just saw it on there.
yeah, they go to your classroom, but you're constantly moving around. You're not standing there in one spot.
And masks are certainly optional.
They're optional.
They can certainly wear those.
Are they available at the front?
We'll make them available. Yeah, generally, we've always had masks available for people. I haven't found your building.
When the kids go in the morning, they're right there.
Yeah,
That's how it is. Elementary.
right. So is it, could we as a courtesy
I got a
just
lot of masks. We have-
put a couple pieces of paper on the front door that said, we have recently experienced outbreaks or cases of COVID in this building. Masks are available at the front desk for anyone who wants. Just a little heads up to somebody who may not be in the know that's from out of town or something like that. Yeah, we've had it. Come on in. Here's masks if you want
Yeah, I'm sure Mr. Carver can do that.
them. Okay.
I'll make sure he does. Yeah. And he's watching right now.
Okay. Well, thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Okay, anything
Anything else
else?
you want Paul to do?
No, yeah, give me a minute.
All right, that's all I have.
Okay, item L, special education report.
I saw they got the units in.
Yep, we're gonna have heat.
Was a happy day when you know you're gonna have heat.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about the boiler anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the other thing would be there's potential that Becky may have to hire more pairs than she had budgeted for because of the student population. That's good. So, I mean, you gotta provide services that are necessary.
You have to maintain effort. Yeah.
So just to, I guess, forewarn that possibly may ask for additional money because of additional pairs.
There was talk of a behavior support room, 415 being responsible for that. Are we aware of that?
Yes, yeah. we talked
Special ed
about-
wouldn't pick up the tab.
Right, because it would solely be a
I want to
415.
make sure.
We're just in that investigation phase.
But if, we're not expecting 615 to provide that.
No. I mean, I'd like it if they did. I mean.
Because like the style program is split between the districts, but that's everything.
Right.
So straight.
You want to lobby for that?
No, as long as we're okay with it. That's why they didn't want to come up later with why it's special ed.
Also, they're gonna need a couple more members from 415.
Jeff is getting off.
His
term is expired.
That makes
So-
He thought he was.
I thought I was getting off.
Yeah, they'll need to ideally get 3 new members.
Do you want to go ahead and point like new board members? Should probably do that. There's 2 of them here and the other one's not here to find out.
I will say I've learned something about every meeting, especially.
Those meetings are actually very
Yeah.
short. How long are the
Yeah,
meetings?
there's 30 minutes at the most.
45.
It's not like this meeting. It's not even close.
I would
It's a
recommend-
different animal. It's a good experience.
It's pretty much just an update.
Well, Amy, I think you need to step up to the plate. You haven't been. on
I've
that
been a
side.
415 or a 615 employee before, so
Well,
it'd be fun to be on the other side.
The
There you
appointment
go.
doesn't
We got
come until
875.
January, it's just me thinking about it.
well, definitely, we need to address that next month and get,
Well, it'll be actually January. You get your-
right, but we need to have
Right.
somebody on
Plan in place.
plan in place, so. Anything else?
I think that's about it.
Okay. Item M, executive session, discuss non-elected personnel. Enter into executive session to discuss employees as per the non-elected personnel exception under the KOMA. How much time are you gonna need? Okay, so we have a,
So moved.
and a second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign, motion passed 7-0.
Excuse me?
See ya, have a good night. left the meeting mark was 35 to 50.
And they're fairly shaggy,
So what?
fairly long toe.
Yeah.
Mhm, that's what I thought.
I told Addie I can't do it again though. Oh my gosh, like a couple came from,
Well, that's-
Give it yeah.
away, or well, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, they
Okay.
left, and I was like balling in the
Oh,
driveway.
no. We were in executive session for 15 minutes. Is there any action following executive session?
Yes, I would move that we approve.
Kim, here it is.
Kimbry Ulrich, sorry, for a long-term sub position, full-time sub position.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed 7-0.
Sorry, that didn't come out as good as I hoped.
Anything else?
Yes, I would move. Yo, you got it, Jeff, go for it.
I move that we raise our sub rate to $130 a day.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed 7-0. Item, anything else? I guess not. Item N, adjourn meeting.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed 7-0. Thanks a lot. You guys have a good night.
John thought it was 10 o'clock again already.
Well, I was going by the clock in there. I thought, it's been a long night.
I don't know, I wasn't here today. So.
I don't know.